All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Would you join me for the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could just take a minute to remember Bob Coudray and Chris Andell. Father, we thank you for this time to gather as free people and for the people that provided that freedom to us. And we just pray for comfort to the Coudray and Andell families that have suffered a loss recently. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right, any public comment on agenda items? Hearing none, there's no public. Any old business? The only old business I would remind everybody is that we are doing the YouTube show, so please hit your microphones if you need to speak and presenters come up to the microphone to talk. And with that, we will get moving forward on the budget presentations. Coroner, you're up first, Darren, or Steve.
Good evening. Turn over there, I've got this thing all messed up. Oh well, I think I know it by heart, so.
If I can just make a general comment on these books before we get started, they are in alphabetical order by department-ish. So if someone's representing, like the sheriff is going to be Sheriff Jail, it's just under the sheriff. If you have questions, I'll tell you, or if it's weird, I'll tell you where it's under. And I do have a column that I'll keep up here. If we make changes, we'll be making them as we go. So, I mean, if any adjustments are to be made, just let me know.
All right, a couple of changes to mine. They're pretty minimal, actually. We'd like to add one deputy. Our call volume continues to increase. I meant to stop and look at the numbers. I believe we're at 87 cases for the year already. We average, it seems like we're going up about 5-10 cases a year. There's no rhyme or reason to what it is at this point in time. So we would like to add one more deputy position. I believe it's on 11-215. Fuel, we've increased the fuel line item, 2 reasons. One, price of fuel's gone up. We're making more runs, and we also have the ambulance, the decommissioned ambulance that we purchased a couple of years back. Runs off of diesel, and it has a very thirsty tank. So last time I filled it, it was like $240 just to fill it up one time. So we've increased that one just in anticipation for over time. And then vehicle repair, again, we went from 1,500 to 3,000. As you can see, traditionally we don't always spend all of that. I do anticipate by the end of this year, and then presumptive new coroner is going to be needing to put tires on the ambulance. As far as the other vehicle, just the routine oil changes and things that go along with that. So other than that, I believe ours is pretty straightforward. We left autopsy line item, that's our big one. We left it at 30. I anticipate that being pretty close to where we need to be. We had another dust up with the Tippecanoe County coroner who interpreted the law differently than apparently everybody else in the state. But we're under control now. So our autopsies have gone up this past year as well. Just the number that we've needed to incur. Again, no rhyme or reason, nothing in particular. In years past, we've had a lot of overdose situations. Those seem to have plateaued at this point. I'm going to beat on a piece of wood that maintains or hopefully drops in the near future. Have any questions for us? looks like. Say again?
As a percent, what's your budget at?
Uh,
We got a 4.4% increase, what the state allows us. Are you anywhere near that?
Well, I would have to do the numbers there. Looks like we went from 91,922 to 98,261. So
It's not bad.
1% would be 900. Yeah. I was thinking 6, but 7 sounds a lot better.
So, labor, did you hold at 3%? The labor? The labor, did you hold at 3%?
Mm-hmm.
The increases are 3%?
Yes, sir. That's what we recommended to bring forward. The caveat to that would be the one new position.
Yeah, the total would be up from that, yeah.
Yeah.
You doubled your vehicle repairs
Mm-hmm.
so far this year. I mean, you went from $1,500 to $3,000.
Right.
So far this year, you spent $574.
Correct.
Are you thinking you're going to spend 4 times that?
There's a
year?
possibility those tires are expensive. I was given a loose quote of $270 per tire. There's 6 tires on there. And then anything else that comes up, oil changes, fuel filters on diesels are expensive. Anything you do on these vehicles is, and I'd rather aim it high than have to come back to you and harangue you for an additional down the line.
Any other questions or concerns?
You got, show $46,000 spent out of a $91,000, $92,000 budget. You got anything to return by chance?
At this point, I don't. We still have some outstanding bills that go towards the autopsy fund. Of course, the payroll is still in there. There may be a little bit at the end from like dues and subscriptions and office supplies. I just don't know till I get to the end of the year.
Anything else?
Year-to-date, is that through July?
Going once? Thanks.
I'd like to thank this council and all the other councils that came before you for 8 years and a few more past that for your kind consideration for the job that we have to do. So, thank you.
Thanks, Darren.
And Mindy, the expenditures, is that through June 30 or is that?
On the 24, yes.
Hey, David,
Yes.
I do want to mention one thing. The Compensation Study Committee met and will be coming to the council with our recommendation and bullet points at the next meeting, September the 10th, and should start January 1st, 2025. So just want you to know that we'll be coming with a recommendation the next council meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, good evening.
Evening.
For the treasurer's office, we have a pretty quick and simple budget here. Personnel. And I dropped some of my things. Office supply I dropped. We haven't been using it. I've been returning that money. And mileage, we stayed the same. Tax bill preparation. Right now, I have it going up $500. And anticipating everything is kind of going up. But if you look, what I expended in 2024 was only $6,990. There's a lot of things that we've done in our office to reduce the amount of tax bills that are going out And so I don't plan on spending all $9,000, but I, again, kind of like Darren, requested it to have it there so I don't have to come to you in a rush come next April. So, but I always return what I don't use. Software license and maintenance, I anticipate, that's for my cash book. I just increased it by $25. We don't anticipate it going up too much, but I want it there just in case. And then collection fees, $2,800. I've only expended $150 of that. We never know how many NSFs, e-check rejects, or other fees that we will have, and so this is there as a cushion. I, again, always return what I don't use, but so far this year, I've only expended $150. Last year, it was $788. Last year, I gave back 25% of my, other than personnel, my budget for lines, the 2,000 series, 3,000 series, 4,000 series. So it's there as a cushion. Dues and subscriptions went up $25. Seminar and training stayed the same, and equipment I reduced down to $250. At this point, I haven't even expended any of it. I didn't need any new equipment so far. So if I don't expend it, $1,000 will go back.
Any questions for Heather?
Last year, reductions that I gave back, I said I gave back 25%. It was $4,867. Mindy, do you want one of these books to stay here? Okay.
Going once? Everybody good?
What percentage of pay increase have you got there?
I don't know.
You don't
Gary.
know?
I really don't know. Thank you. She'll be able to figure it out much faster than I can. Yeah, we have 5% for her and chief, 29% for first deputy, and 10% for Those numbers were based off the external mid or whatever, so, and I turned in my budget, I think, later than July 1st, and didn't realize we were doing, the other. Yeah. We always advertise that.
Okay. Everybody good? Thanks, Heather.
Okay, thank you.
Recorder.
You guys are knocking out the easy ones first, right? Okay, so I am going to still use everything in next year's budget out of the recorder perpetuation, including my salary. I don't think many counties actually pay their elected official out of the perpetuation, and we have to do a special statement. But I did talk to State Board of Accounts, and they are okay with that as long as we are all in agreement, which we have been, according to Jennifer, for several years. So I do have that sworn statement from Tyler to get signed and notarized, so we're all good there. Our numbers are a little odd because we went from a part-time chief deputy and a part-time person, and we're full ongoing to a full-time chief deputy and kind of phasing down the part-time person. So that makes our numbers look a little different in the past few years. I do want to make sure in the salary study on this chart where you had all of the officials and where we're high-low, that's not my salary. I told Lori, so hopefully she's updated. That was Jennifer's. So it's a little bit higher than mine. Just get that little word in there. I'm keeping $1,000 in Social Security. That is the Social Security for our part-time person only, so I dropped that because our part-time person is phasing down. Office supplies, I kept the same. I can't imagine we will spend that, but that's what Jennifer kept doing, so I'll see how a year goes, and obviously if I don't spend it, it doesn't even go anywhere. I did put in a mileage of $300. We go to the bank often, not every day, and we try to just do it on our way home, but if in the middle of the day we need to run, I don't feel like I need to make my person pay for their mileage to go to the bank and back. Dues and subscriptions, we overspent last year's $500, so I increased that to $600. And then office maintenance, that includes our vendor, CSI. And I was anticipating them to go up. They actually are not even going to go up for next year, but again, if I don't spend it, it just stays in the perpetuation.
Any questions? Everybody's quiet tonight. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Does anybody want this as a reminder?
Yeah, I've got it somewhere. Assessor's up next. Back to the start.
As you can see, I'm not Sherry Bentley, but I'm Peggy Grayson, Chief Deputy Assessor. And ours is pretty easy as well. Most of our salaries come out of reassessment fund, and that was all a 3% increase. The other note is that we did pay off our software. We had 5 years to pay for it. That's paid for now, so we'll just have maintenance fees. And we're going to put that towards consultant for appeals and maybe some other consulting work that they might do for us. And of course, postage is going to go up with the Form 11s that we send out. That's why the increase there. But everything else is pretty much the same. Any questions? Or?
The consultant for the appeals, I missed the first part of that.
Okay, from the Xsoft, we paid off our Xsoft software program, our CAMA system, and because we have 5 years to pay for it, that's paid for now, so we'll just have a maintenance fee. So that's why it's cut to $45,000 on software conversion. So we just have to pay the maintenance fee now. And so some of that money we're putting to...
I was going out with you, the
Yeah, that's...
consultant for the appeals.
Right, and so some of that money is we're putting into the consultant fees, appeals, like especially commercial.
Thank you.
Tyler does our consulting work, our reassessment, new construction, and we contract that out through Tyler Technologies. So they'll be doing that, but they're the ones that have to come in back their assessment. So if someone files an appeal, they have to back that assessment up.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions?
Yes, and we're almost done with reassessment. 95% done, probably. So we're excited.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Looks like surveyor next. Tom here.
Tom is actually out sick.
Okay.
He has requested that he can be seen tomorrow if he's better. I told him I would talk to you all this afternoon. He doesn't have huge budgets, so let me find him real quick. My apologies.
Here we are.
I might be able to do this for him. He has kept at the 3% for himself. I will say he has looked for a drainage check or had a drainage check on his budget for a couple years now. He has not yet filled that position. So that 32,954 is assuming that he fills that position this year. History's told us he hasn't done that. But he does also have a part-time position in there that he pays Vicky to help there. He does get some salary enhancements for how many drains he has on assessment. And that looks like it went up 9%. I can't answer why. I'm assuming he knows something about how many drains, how many square feet of drains or something, I think is what it is. Mileage. Yeah, that would make more sense. Fuel, he kept the same. Office supplies, it doesn't look like he made any major changes to his county general budget. Up a little bit in printer maintenance. Everything else stayed the same there. He does have the drainage board under him as well. Does anybody have any questions on his county general budget that I might be able to answer? Or something that I can email him to get an answer for tomorrow? Okay. Let me,
Is he loaning out the pickup truck?
is he, I'm sorry?
Loaning out the pickup truck?
I don't know.
Spent $917 all last year, and he's already spent $834.
Okay, 917 this. You don't want me to ask him? I'm not happy to ask him. I'm not scared, Tom. Not at Cummins, anyway. Drainage board, looks like he kept essentially the same, went down a little bit in attorney fees. Yeah, it's pretty much the same.
Down a little bit.
So what else does he have? I think that's it. Are there any more budgets behind there for him? That's it? Okay, that's it for Tom. If nobody has any questions, I'll just tell him he's off the hook for tomorrow and wish him well. Okay.
Everybody okay with that? All right, Superior One.
I think the only thing that changed was our salaries, and we just did the 3% that we had originally been told, so we didn't put any other figures in, so we just have the 3%. And we put the 3% in, or a 2% increase in the overtime during budget, or during jury trials. The staff can get overtime, but they generally opt to take it in comp time.
Okay.
We may run out of money this year for jury trials, but Judge Chad said I could maybe use some of his money.
Getting the jury trials in, huh?
Well, we've got a guy we're going to try for the 3rd time, so that
Oh, wow.
happens.
Any question for Judge Barajas? Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Superior Two.
So I'm asking for 3% for all of my staff, unless we're willing to give more. Not asking for any raise from the county for myself. And that's really it.
Thanks. Well played. Any questions for Judge Petrie?
Tough crowd. I came all the way out here, had to get
I
through.
can say, usually whenever I testify, it's like you're sweating in front of the judge. We're
Right.
trying to make you guys sweat a little bit, but get off easy, so thank you.
Didn't even hit an orange barrel on the way here.
And last but not least, Judge Chad.
Good evening. I think mine is pretty simple. Overall, my budget request is 5% less than it is this year. Every line item is exactly the same as this year, with the exception of staff salaries. I've put in 3% across the board. In the meantime, I'm filling 2 of those slots with new employees, so those numbers actually go down also.
Okay. Like it when the budget goes down.
Oh.
Yeah. Hang on, we're still digging in our books, apparently. Circuit, under C. Okay, as a refresher, A,
Circuit
B,
with a
and then
C.
C, yeah. Say again? Yeah. Added in. Okay, any questions for Judge Chad now? Everybody's on the right page? Yeah. Going once? All right, thanks.
Almost.
Clerk?
Before she approaches, I owe her an apology. I did not get your new budget put in, if you're looking at that with a quizzical. Yeah, so, do you have it on you by chance?
I do.
May I have it, and I'll just make a quick change? Okay, it'll take me 2 seconds.
Just let me know when you're ready, Mindy. Well, we're drinking from a fire hose, but we're doing all right. The judges tell me nothing has changed on their end, so I take that as a good sign for now. Then the elections come up, so we'll see what happens. Overall, salaries, we just did a 3% across the board. I'm not real sure where we lie on the compensation scale, so if that, I was told that there might be a chance to change some of those if they were to get changed later. So what I did across the board right now is just a 3% increase for everybody. We are down one full-time position and a half part-time position right now, so we're looking to fill those, but I'm also trying to figure out exactly what that means in the office right now. So we've hired one full-time and a part-time, and right now for me to keep them busy with my knowledge is enough for me to deal with right now, so we'll stick with that. Me to keep going, Mindy? Yeah, keep going. Okay. All right, I did a 3% on the clerk's regular items, supplies, and subscriptions. Training and seminars, I was hoping about half of our staff is going to be new, so I was looking to get a little bit more there. In the past, it was 500, and I'm looking at 1,500 possibly for the training for next year. Also, in the perpetuation fund, I'm not sure if I put this in the right spot, but the basement has some major issues that need to be dealt with sooner than later. There's documents that are not going to last if we don't get them taken care of. So possibly some shelving and maybe some nice totes and maybe a system sort of like what the treasurer has in their office for storing documents, something we would be looking to do. So I've inflated that budget from 10,000 to 15,000. I really don't know if it's going to cost that much. I guess what I would say to you is whatever you allow me to have, we will do our best to get it done in that amount. And then the last budget item we have is elections. There are no elections next year. So all I could really do with that was look at past records and what was pulled over from year to year, regardless of whether or not there was an election, and I left those in there. If there were, took them out if they had been removed in the past. So I just kind of used the model that was there before me. Any questions on that?
Mindy, do you want to go over the changes that you made there?
Okay, so on her main budget, so county general clerk 0001, she went from 331,226 to 343,785, and much of that is just adjusted salaries. I think Leah had taken her down a little bit to the beginning salary, just not knowing what to do. So looks like she put in 3%, as she said, from this year's budget. So she stayed in line, just increased instead of resetting back to.
Right, so I just used what was in for 2024
Yeah.
and did a 3%
Yeah.
increase overall.
So I wouldn't question, that's all in line. The 0104 budget for election expense, she has some extra lines in there, so I'm not going to be able to do that real quick. But I can tell you what it is as opposed to what it says. So it was in at 44,600. And it is now in for 103,700. The majority of that looks to be computer software for 80,000. Is that correct?
Actually, I think that the difference is there's no election, so there would be no poll workers, absentee voters, boards,
No,
precinct board
it went
members.
up quite a bit from what I'm looking at. On the election expense 0104.
It should have went down from 140 to 103.
My apologies. 140. I show 2024 at 95.6. I'm going to take her word on it. It went from 143 to 103. I'll have to look at this. It looks like there were several lines. If it was a zero, I took it out, and I'm guessing a lot of them are zeroed out, and she's added them back in. So I don't have accurate data on that, but I will tomorrow.
Okay.
How's that?
So you were saying they were zeroed out?
I think they were zeroed out for 2025 by the previous clerk, but,
Okay.
and if it was zero, I removed it just to save space.
Yeah, and there may be some things in there that we don't use. I was just looking at the model from the previous years, and whatever was kept over the years, regardless of whether there's an election or not, I left in there. I really haven't had the time to dive into whether or not we'll use those funds or not.
Trusting her document, it went down $40,000. And I'm going to trust her document. So I'll confirm that tomorrow.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions? Hey, Brett.
How do you look for this year, ending out? I know you're new with the election and everything coming up. As far as the funds, are you thinking you'll be able to make it through?
Yeah, everything looks well in order to me. I think we won't be getting into all the perpetuation funds. I'm not even sure we'll use all the supplies this year. I don't know what has been done in the past. It looks like a lot of them have been expended, so I don't know if there's going to be a need for a paper, but right now it looks like we're in pretty good shape. I don't see a whole lot that's going to tax that. I mean, everything was we had more than 40% left at this point, like today. So I don't see any reason why, from what I've seen in a month, that we would need any more.
With that garden hose, right?
It's a fire hose, it's not a
Oh,
garden
fire
hose.
hose, more than a garden hose, okay.
That's right.
All right, well, good. Well, if you need anything, let us know.
Thank you, appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Boozer?
Good evening. With regard to the non-employee matters, I think the only thing I asked for additional funding for was we needed to increase copier lease expense from $6,000 to $8,000. I think everything else is in line with what we've asked for in the past. With regard to salaries, I asked for 5%, and that's because early on, nobody told me 3% was going to be the limit. And other than that, with the lawyers in the office, I asked for an additional $5,000 enhancement to their salary. I did that for a couple of reasons. Primarily, if we're going to keep people employed as attorneys, we're going to have to pay pretty close to the going rate, and it's difficult to attract attorneys outside Indianapolis and outside the donut counties. And two of the lawyers that I have significant experience. I understand, well, I have an inkling that your salary revision is going to take care of some of that, but it seemed to me that since I don't know what that's going to be, 5,000 seemed to be appropriate, and to put it in the ballpark with what other counties are paying. In terms of what we have spent this year on salaries, I did have an employee who'd been with me for 20-plus years who retired. That's freed up some money. I had a job position that was very difficult to fill. We had support staff that was vacant for about 3 or 4 months when we made a lateral transfer. So there's going to be some money available that's probably going to come back to the county. But I haven't put pencil and paper to figure out what that is. But that employee is making substantially less than the person that had the lateral transfer. And the good news is we don't have anything that requires oil changes or tires. So
Limited under a copier. Any questions for Joe? Okay. Thank you.
Angela, you want to come up
Angela,
and do the
okay.
4D?
Yeah, the 4D. Next tab. Well, no, it's not a tab. It's next page. Still under pressure.
I'd like to remind that most of our salary is like refunded at 29,000 for the first 29,000 and 66% for every dollar spent by the county. So I did up dues and membership, or dues and, yeah, I believe that expense, due to the fact that we have to pay for out-of-state service now. So if we want to have sheriffs serve someone in Illinois or Connecticut, they tell us what their service fee is. Lately, I've been writing a check and then getting reimbursed for it. We just send it with our paperwork to be served. And that's a new expense that seems to be popping up at all the county jails outside of here. Indiana, I'm good, it's free, but outside of Indiana, I pay anywhere from $50 to $100 to have a non-custodial person serve for court. We do the certified mailing in a lot of cases as well, which is almost $9 a person. So I needed to double that one line. Otherwise, it was like Joe said, I did not put 5,000 on the request in error for the prosecutor. Instead, we have 5% down the line, but I believe Joe would include him in the prosecutor's request for the 5,000.
To clarify, you mean Burley?
Yes, Burley.
Okay, thank you.
Jeremy Burley.
Any questions?
None? Thank you.
Guess not. Thank you. Brian. Oh, there you go. Throwing her in the fire, huh?
Yeah, my boss is here for backup for me.
There you go.
So I'm going to start with the bad and I guess end with the good, because I think everyone likes to end on a good note. As for our budgetary increases this year, Chief Brian Donaldson is 3%. That is commensurate with what Chief Deputy Andrew Salter makes, and was kind of the agreement when our agency at least started, is to keep him at that rate as well. As for all of our attorneys, and here's where we get to the bad, we are requesting, like the prosecutor's office, a $5,000 pay increase for each deputy, including myself as the chief deputy. As probably most of you are not aware, that this week, one of our attorneys has left. It's his last week this week, and unfortunately, we don't have any real people that are like waiting for these positions. The Commission on Indiana's Legal Future released its findings on July 30th of this year, and according to the American Bar Association, our state ranks in the bottom 10 for the sheer number of attorneys per 1,000 residents with a 2.3, meaning that for every 1,000 people, there's usually about 2.3 attorneys, which is pretty abysmal. Over half the counties in the state of Indiana, half of them have fewer than one lawyer per 1,000 residents. That qualifies those as legal deserts. If we are not there, then we are close. Meaning that for 38,000 people approximately in Montgomery County, there would have to be 38 practicing attorneys. That can include judges, it can include that. But I can honestly not think of 38 practicing attorneys here, which means that we would qualify as a legal desert. So what does that mean? That it means, the commission and what they did and what they're looking at in that report that was released in July 30th, they're great recommendations, but they are not going to really make much of an impact, if anything, for probably the next 5 to 10 years. So what does that mean for us? It means that most people up here are business people. Supply and demand is that there are not enough attorneys to literally go around the state of Indiana to fill all the positions. Montgomery County is a great place to come to raise a family. I'm a transplant. My husband kind of brought me along here. I love it, but realistically, unless lawyers or people graduating from law school have a reason to come here, a lot of them aren't even looking to our county. In the last 6 months, people have approached me to leave my job. I know that people have, obviously they've approached Mr. Kakarala, who is in fact leaving, and they've also approached at least one other of our people who are currently practicing as an attorney. The reality is that we are trying to maintain the best we can, but we are losing people, and it's very hard to replace them, and it's very hard to train an attorney. Just like I know that everyone has heard in the past, the training, we've trained an attorney for 1.5 years and they're leaving, which is very difficult. As for the office staff, we are requesting raises for our office staff, but I think the most important thing with our actual staff members that I just want to bring to your guys' attention is that in the compensation study, they have listed the office administrator for the public defenders at a different rate than the office administrator for the prosecutor's office, which would be approximately a $5,000 difference in pay. We are asking that when you guys are looking at the study and the compensation study, that you take that into account and try to equalize both the position of our office administrator and the administrative assistant to be equal with the prosecutor's office. That being said, there have been at least some good things that have happened. Like I said, I'm going to try to end on a more positive note. That just this past week, we have had an influx of recent resumes for the investigator position, so it looks like we're going to move forward on that. That position has not been filled yet, but we do have some leads on that. Other increases that you'll note just across the budget generally, most of them are for office supplies, depositions, our public defender contracts, a small stipend increase for our board, expert witness fees, training expenses. Mr. Donaldson has let me know that most of those have not changed since 2018 when the office was opened. Unfortunately, things are more expensive and we are spending more money with more attorneys. But the really good part that I want to end on, and it's my understanding that the Commission on Court-Appointed Attorneys letter was not forwarded to you guys. We will get that to you. But anyway, if we join the reimbursement program, which is put out by the Commission on Court-Appointed Attorneys, that is what we were in for a very long time, to receive reimbursement of our expenses and our cost up to 40% of our felony expenses. They have run the numbers for our county, and it would save our county over $100,000 per annum by getting reimbursement funds from the state to help fund our expenses. So those depositions, our health insurance costs, the salary costs, all of that, we could get up to 40% back from the state if we join into their reimbursement program. Now, the biggest requirement that usually means is that we have to have caseload caps, meaning that we have to have reasonable caseloads. We also have to have pay parity with the prosecutor's office. Those are the usual 2 big things that they require, okay? We do have someone from the commission who is willing to come speak with you and answer detailed questions about what the letter entails. But approximately, when they ran the numbers with what the reimbursement could be, approximately $117,000 per annum could come back to the county. And that even entails any of the costs that we would just have to generally increase as well. So that would be like a net benefit back to the county, okay? Not even counting the salary increases that would be required. So
there's 2 pieces. If we join the you have a caseload, and what was the second one?
we have to maintain pay parity with the prosecutor's office, meaning that our salaries have to be commensurate with our, so the biggest part about that, honestly, would be to bring Mr. Donald's salary up to what Joseph Boozer is making, and mine up to what Andrew Salter would be making. And then generally, if there are increases in the prosecutor's office, then we have to see those similar increases in the public defender. The idea being is that, 1, we are required to maintain reasonable caseloads, and 2, that we can't be treated differently than the prosecutor's office.
Do we fall in to the rules on the case loads?
No, we're not. But they took into account the two positions. So we do have an intern right now who took the bar. So hopefully she will be filling one of those positions. But now with Mr. Coccarello leaving, then we do have another open position. What I have talked about with the commission is they will understand that we have a budgeted position, and they can let us try to opt into the program with the understanding that we would be filling that position. My understanding, our numbers are close enough with a fully staffed office that we may be close, if not on, the numbers. But obviously not fully staffed, we wouldn't be.
Thanks.
But those positions have already been budgeted, so
So does that mean every time you lose somebody, we drop off again?
not necessarily. I mean, they will give you time, to fix the problems, okay? Now, if they see that we are never filling the position, then there would be a problem. And then they would probably be seeing why we weren't being able to fill the position. But it's not like Mr. Coccarello leaves and then immediately they're gonna say we're out of compliance.
So have you run the numbers? By the way, Tom, this doesn't work. It hasn't worked forever, and so I'm just going to slide over here. Yeah, I think there's a reason it doesn't work. So have you run the numbers, like if we increase the salaries to match what they need to be, is that still going to see a return if we join this program?
I mean, we hope so. I mean, I think probably the biggest thing that the commission allows us to do is by keeping the caseloads at a reasonable number and keeping them in compliance, we are not burning through attorneys. We're not burning through attorneys who get overworked and then decide that they're going to go leave somewhere else. I've practiced in 3 separate counties. 2 of them have been commission and 1 of them has been non-commission. Obviously, us is non-commission. It's a very different experience, in all honesty, to be under a caseload limit that would be considered manageable.
Yeah, but you'll have all those numbers for us, right?
What was that?
You'll have those numbers for us, right?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct. And the commission can go into much more nitty-gritty about
Right.
all of their analysis and everything. And like I said, members from the commission are willing to come speak with both you as well as the commissioners as well to kind of cover everything that is in this letter in much more detail about all of the requirements and all of that. But like I said, that could be, I mean, a pretty substantial net positive, and I think also would possibly alleviate some of the issues with attorney retention. Because in all honesty, there's a lot of times where attorneys will get burnt out on the type of work and then choose to go into a different position.
That's good.
Any other
So tell us about the attorney that left.
So-
Where did he go?
He's going to the Marion County Prosecutor's Office.
Okay,
He wanted to go back to a big city,
okay,
honestly.
okay.
Like I said, Montgomery County is fantastic to raise a family. Like I said, my husband and I are both transplants here. But for someone who is single and still wants the amenities of a big city, I think that's why primary is going back, so. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Probation's up next.
I asked Pickle if he was going to speak since deputies are doing it, but he said no.
I'm not seeing probation.
Yeah. Could I take a moment with Mindy? Please? Mindy, can you pull mine up, and we're going to start with 1,000? That's the only one we have to do. Okay. I want to look at 11030. Account 11030. Could you please amend the number to $43,907? The next one is 11032. I apologize, we're not amending that one. 11209. $36,886. Account 11409. $41,282. Yes. And the last one is 11523. $55,176. So do you agree that the total is $729,524? Thank you. Okay, those are just some minor adjustments based on now we know who is filling what line they're filling. So the salaries for support staff are at the external low point with a 3% pay raise, which is what I interpreted was said at the county council meeting, but you will let me know, as Brett said, at a later date. If that's not correct, we'll adjust that. As you know, probation officer salaries are set by the state, but the state doesn't give you any money, and I get the repercussions thereof, so bear with me. There was a wage compensation study completed by the probation officer as a position across the board. It was kind of nice that they were doing it the same year that you guys were doing yours. So all of the salaries presented are set at the recommended salary schedule. And what I did then is, based on those increases occurring, we currently pay $5,000 above the minimum schedule. Because they went with the recommended, I removed that additional duty pay from the probation officers. It's something that in the future, I will likely come back to you and say I would like to go back to that if we can justify it. But based on going with the recommended salary, that's what I excluded. Also, the problem is looking at it is it's not comparing apples to apples, because I have so much turnover and people going into different positions. I can't just look at lines. So in regards to different salaries, it would look more significant. So the starting salary for a PO went up a significant amount. And so if you were just looking at that, and I'll give you an example. One of my employees, because he's a new hire, his salary would look to go up 25%. And that's pretty significant. But that's because they're raising the starting level for a PO. Chief Justice Rush stated that she wants to get POs in line with other state employees. Her example was the Department of Child Services. They did that 1 or 2 years ago. Now, if you'll remember, I came to you 2 years ago and said, hey, this is forthcoming. Here it comes. So this was, once again, unknown where it would land, but this is where we're at. So all of my salaries are in alignment with the recommended salary, and as I said, I removed the $5,000. Something else to think about is probation officer salaries can be paid from public safety lit. So if that's ever something that you want to give consideration to, we can move to that.
He's carrying a gun.
Pardon? So you got my back, right?
I said, careful, he's carrying a
Yeah.
gun.
One thing I did quickly speak with my liaisons about was the concept of, and although this is just a Band-Aid, it's something to consider. With the increases based on the salary and where things stand, my increase in the $1,000 is about $86,000. For 1 year, I can pick up one of those salaries, and that would reduce it by $55,000. Now, I call that a Band-Aid. In other words, it's not going to be a long-term fix. But a certain someone, Mr. Bickle in the back, is planning to retire at the beginning of 2026. He's been here since DIRT started, and because of that, his salary is pretty significant. Well, there you go. So with that consideration, that's where I'm going to be able to offset some of that cost in 2026. I'll move that salary that if we take it out and put it down into 2,100, in 2026, I would be moving that back up. And I'm offsetting that based on years of experience and changes in the salary. Now, I would love for you just to say, nope, looks good, and we'll just keep it there and we'll move on. But I know Gary.
So how are you and grants getting along?
Oh, I love my grants. Love them.
I mean,
So
historically, grants have paid about half of your budget.
I am writing for all the grants that I can. We will continue. I wrote for 5 salaries, which is my normal. So far, I've gotten 3 of them confirmed. So that's the positive aspect of it. Within the 1,000, you guys don't see anything of my operating costs. That's all within other funds. We also use grants to offset programs and things of that nature. So you don't see those differences within here. So, like I said, keep my fingers crossed. Keep working on them. I'm sorry? Total, that's right, I have that number for you. Total grants awarded in 2024 is $562,172. And those are the ones that are being operated within 2024. So for example, the ones that I just got announced that we were awarded that are actually for 2025, I don't include that in here.
Works in this, I don't know, I've got a location 235 number.
That's my department, 235 is in my
2100
department.
So that grant would offset that cost if you got it again for 25?
If I get those 5 salaries within 2,100, and I can give you the accounts if you'd like them, but there are 5 salaries within 2,100 that it would offset that cost.
Which it would come back and equal about 562,000.
No, because that 562 also includes programming. So it's not just those, but it covers 5 salaries. So I'm going to do a rough guess on this.
You better than me.
You're at least 350 to 400,000. And the other thing to consider is, I mean, it's a big consideration for me, is if we don't pay the recommended salary and we don't keep up with things, I'm going to lose more employees. I've lost 3 employees this year. One was my support staff, and they just literally was able to take a walk-in position at a local factory and make $2.50 more an hour. I can't compete with that. I have nothing. I had 2 probation officers leave. They took work-from-home positions. I can't compete with a work-from-home position earning the same salary or higher. So we're looking within the department of how can we be creative outside of just money to be able to maintain and keep people. Because every time we lose someone with that experience, it's like starting over. It takes 2 years to train someone. So I've got to maintain the employees that I have.
If I may add to that, maintaining $562,000 of grants is a chore, a huge chore for both our office and her office is fabulous at doing that. And losing any kind of office staff, I'm just going to say, would be hard for both of our offices from that perspective.
The other aspect that I forgot to mention was within the 1,000, it's account 11030. Excuse me, 11032. You guys approved me to carry on a support staff for a short period of time, meaning that Barb Feltner is retiring. She'll be retiring in June of 2025. And so you'll see it's a salary of $23,412. That's a temporary, it stays there till June, and I won't be asking for that again. It was truly a blessing from the standpoint of being able to have Kirsten be able to stay on and train a new hire. But unfortunately, that support staff member that left, I would have been in dire straits if we hadn't, by chance, hired 1 new employee. And it's not a new employee, it's just replacing an employee, because I would have been down to 1 support staff out of 3. So the good news is we had this, and I'm very thankful for that. But you can count on that $23,000 being removed from the budget for 2026. So in theory, Gary, if we wanted to get down to the nickel and dime, I could get you down to 2%. And that 2% would be if you took out the $55,000 salary for 1 PO that I'd cover for 1 year, and then that part-time support staff for the $23,412. It'd get me down to $650,936, which I believe is a 2% increase over 2024 salary, or 2024's budget from the 1,000 line. But once again, I'm not asking you to do that. That's all I have for you.
Any questions?
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Henry. And council, that's us. It's pretty simple. We just basically did the same thing we did last year. We got the placeholder, which is the special appropriation line. We did go ahead and put the 3% in increase in salaries. We've not done that for, well, the 4 years I've been on, so. And everything else stayed the same. Questions, concerns, comments, protest? Okay. Mindy?
If I have permission, I'm just gonna sit here and do this. Let me get- I said if I have permission, I'll just stay here, not get up there. My budget is fairly simple. I'm gonna steal from Ashley, start bad, end good. The salaries that I have reflected on here, I know I've spoken about this before, but we were instructed to do our salary when I took office one way, and then immediately following that, it was handled differently for the clerk, recorder, and treasurer. So these numbers just simply reflect the same exact calculations as what would have happened if we'd have been consistent and stayed and used those calculations for our office as well. I do not expect these numbers. I was happy with what we saw in the salary study. For budgeting, we always budget high. That's just historically how we've done it. So I wanted to get those numbers in there because you can see it would have made a big difference if we'd have kept those salaries in line with how we handled those other 3 offices. Again, the salary study came out and I was not surprised that with some of those numbers. So I'm anticipate those going down. Everything else remained the same in all of my budgets. There's 2 exceptions to that. One is a $5,000 additional duty pay. That's new legislation for the auditor's salary. It's the same as the clerk gets it, surveyor gets it, other departments get it. But it's just a recognition of how many committees we have to sit on, how many extra meetings. I don't know, you guys may or may not be aware of this, but I sit on about 10 committees or have to report to about 10 committees outside of council and commissioners. It also reflects just some of the additional duties that have been placed on our offices. Many of as a matter of fact, I don't know an auditor that hasn't asked for that for next year. So that is new legislation. The other legislation that is new is they have allowed us to seek our own counsel. And so I've put $15,000 in there. I don't anticipate having to use that, but there could be a time where we do not, there's conflict between the county or commissioners or council that in our office, and this allows us to seek our own counsel. So I did put it in there. I don't anticipate having to use it, but again, we always budget high. So everything else stayed exactly the same. One of the things that, I'm just going to go ahead, we handle a couple that are listed under no department, so you'll see those. We were having some issues with utility claims getting in on time, so I don't know, last year, the year before, our office took over writing up all the claims for all the utilities for all the county, I think with the exception of highway. And so that is listed under county general utilities in the no department one. And then trash removal is just separate than that, but it's the same thing. We handle all the trash removal claims and payment of those to avoid late fees. The other budget that we handle is the elected officials training, and we kept that the same. So that's under 1217, no department. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
So there's aerial photography under the plat book, and then there's also aerial photography under the surveyor. Does he do that much aerial photography, 6,000?
So there's an aerial photography fee that is split between 5 to 7 departments. So the surveyor pays for part of it, we pay for part of it. It's equal, it's $39.93, I
Right, that's
believe, or
what
$39.94,
Okay.
a department.
So that's actually just one fee, just split apart?
Correct.
Okay. Questions? Still studying? Last but not least, Sheriff Needham.
Good evening. Where would you like to start?
You're the sheriff, start wherever you want.
I can just hold it, like, go around and like karaoke with it. Pretty much, I mean, you know, the 3% what was given as guidance to turn in for, that's what was submitted, that's what's on the forms. There's a few items. The security's up first and foremost. I think that's pretty much stayed the same. It's pretty self-sufficient. The jail, there's a few lines that have gone up. Obviously, the food, the medical, it's strictly inflation. I mean, we've held that as long and hard as we could. Anything that's went up, it is simply based on inflation that obviously that none of us have any control over. The roadside, the sheriff budget, it's the same. Vehicles went up a little bit. I've kept that in my budget. Our cars are just, I mean, I just got invoices today for our Explorers. I mean, we've gone from paying $32,000 to $53,000 for a baseline Explorer or a Tahoe. I mean, if there was something I could do, I would do it, but there's nothing I can do with that. Fuel cost, the same. It's gone up a little bit. The overtime, it went up a little bit as well. Other than that, things are pretty much the same. I will say, I met with Gary last week. I have concerns over the 3%. I've got 2 known openings coming up, one in January, one in June of next year. I don't think 3% across the board for pay, it's just not going to do it. Public safety, it's a wild world right now. I don't know where the limit's at. I would think we would be getting close, but, you know, the $61,000 that, you know, we're paying a new deputy to come in, I'm not going to get anybody for $61,000. I'm here to tell you right now. I'm going to lose a captain with years of experience, and I'm going to lose a sergeant, both with over 20 years of experience. And I think we've stolen everybody we can steal from Park County, from Fountain County, from those counties. I'm not going to get them from Hendricks. I'm not going to get them from Tippecanoe. I'm not going to get them from the bigger places. I mean, Crawfordsville has enacted a pay raise for their employees, for their police officers. You know, they're starting around 70. So, you know, bumping up the starting salary to 62 or 63 for a deputy, I will lose people. I mean, it's just the way it is. I don't know how we combat that. You guys have always been fair to me. The council before you has always been fair to Mark and to me. But I've always portrayed that to you guys as well. You know, I mean, you know, Gary asked a couple years ago when you guys gave a pay raise, hey, even if we give this to you, you're still going to be in the middle, you know? And I think my word then was reasonable. I've always tried to be reasonable with you guys, and I think you guys have always been fair with us. So I don't know when that final decision is going to be made or who's going to make it. But if we stick at 3%, we're going to have trouble.
Ryan, so what do you feel is a reasonable, attractive starting pay for a deputy?
Well, you know, I mean, the pay group, and I apologize, I don't remember their name. But, you know, I spoke to them a few different times, and I spoke to Addie, you know, at the end. She had to collect some more information, and, you know, I had put together a matrix and shared that with Gary and Tom and I believe Dave, and that was shared with Addie. You know, mine was 71 for a starting deputy. That was window dressing because the state police start at 70. The city police start at 70. If it's 1,000 more, it's shinier. I mean, that was my whole theory with that. She said that we were close, and she came up with 68, you know, is what that company came up with. They thought was, I think that's the median salary for what they came up with. I would say anywhere between 68 and 71. You know, whether that's 68 or it's 69 or 70 or 71. I get the back end cost for me is expensive. I completely understand that. You know, the sheriff pension is different. I'm well aware we have the money to pay for a hefty raise right now, but I also get there's a hefty back end cost that comes along with that, and it's not an easy formula. It has to do with the dynamics, the demographics of our department, you know, who's vested, what age, how many years. I mean, it's not just a 3% across the board. But the jail's in the same boat. You know, I mean, I think I've been through 27 jail officers this year, just this year, at $41,000. And again, I mean, you know, I haven't come to you and asked, but $41,000 isn't anything. I mean, if you're living at home, if you're 18 or 19 and you're living at home, you can probably get by. But if you're 20 on up, I mean, you're paying an apartment. I mean, if you're paying rent, you're paying a car payment. I mean, if you're trying to start a family, there's no way. You know, I mean, $41,000, you just can't do it. And I think we were both pretty close with the company that did the study versus, I think we were both around that 49, 48 mark for the jail, which still isn't, I mean, that's not a lot by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a lot to them. You know, for the ones that I have that have stuck through it, that are still with me, I have a lot of ones on there just because of the turnover. I mean, we've tried everything that I can possibly do. We've changed uniforms. I mean, they have a great work schedule. It's a crappy job. I mean, you're dealing with 150 to 160 adult delinquents every single day you come to work. They want to fight, they want to spit, they want to throw feces, they want to, I mean, that's what they deal with every single day. And it doesn't take, I mean, in the old days when I started, that's how you got hired. You put your time in the jail and proved yourself, and you waited and waited. I waited 3.5 years. I wouldn't trade it for anything, but I wouldn't do it again. The jail staff that we have now, I maybe have 3 or 4 out of 30 that have a desire to become a police officer. They just don't want to do it. They're there for a short time. So I just wanted to share that with you. I mean, I don't know when that final decision is made. I don't know who makes that final decision. But it concerns me. I mean, you guys asked for 3%. That's what I did. That's what's in my budget. But I just want to share that with you. I mean, before a final decision is made, I'm afraid if we keep the road we're going, especially in the jail, we're going to pay for it on the back end a whole lot more.
So your experienced officers that are leaving, we kind of talked about base pay looks like. I mean, how
We've lost a couple this year to other facilities, Hendricks County being one of them. She was a 2.5 year jail deputy, a good employee. But they're blasting Facebook right now. If you go over to Hendricks County Jail, walk in the door, $55,000, year one. Again, trying to be reasonable, I'm not asking for 60, but they buy into that, they see, you guys, again, you guys have always been good to us, and they understand, there's only so much money. And I get everybody else that, came before me and everybody else tomorrow night, I'm certain, is going to ask for more money. You guys have tough decisions. There's no doubt. But I would certainly point to, the jail turnover. We've let a couple go. We've arrested a couple for doing things they should not be doing. And the rest have just quit. The two I have leaving on the road next year concern me. We just went through a hiring process. I think we started with 7 or 8 submitted applications. After the testing, we were down to 2, and we got a good kid from Park County. But again, those are, we've cherry-picked a lot from surrounding counties. That's only going to work so long, and so I guess just food for thought. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, Ryan, you must have not been in here earlier. The study committee will be bringing a recommendation to the full board next meeting, which will be on the September 10th. So the September 10th meeting will have a recommendation. Addie and Kent, I was there. Were you online? And he was there. And Tyler, were you there then? No, Dan was on. Dan was on. So we've got everything kind of where we need to be. So we'll be coming to them on the next meeting. So
I wasn't here. I was late. I apologize.
No. But I wanted you to know that
Yep.
we did announce
Yeah.
that. So I wanted you to know.
I just wanted to share it with the full council, not knowing how all this is working behind the scenes, my concerns, and before a decision was made, that we're going forward with 3% across the board, I just wanted to share my concerns, that it concerns me greatly.
Yeah, and I want you to know it's been our concerns too. So, and we've put a lot of work in on this, a lot of meetings, a lot of talking, no arguments, but I think we're a united front, or I know we are. But the thing is, it's like you say, we've got so much money, and we want to move, people to where they need to be, and then we've got other things that we're wanting to look forward to and do to make it better. So I want you to know that all of us are really trying hard to do what we can. We
You
really
guys have
are.
a terrible job.
Yeah.
A terrible.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing it. It's. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was supposed to say we don't get things thrown at us.
You have a
or-
terrible job, but you do a great job. Let me, yeah. But no, I get it. It's tough. Everybody every year is going to come up here and ask. They want more. And I don't think I ever have, and I never will come up here and say I'm more important than somebody else. But, at the end of the day, my people are dealing with stuff that, the vast majority aren't. And just the amount of employees that I have and that I have to have, it's beyond challenging.
Yeah, law enforcement's definitely been a challenging, changing environment, especially
It
in the last
has.
few years, and yeah.
God only knows what this election will do to it, so.
Hey, Ryan,
yeah,
also, I
we'll
want you to know, you weren't here. We'd had a moment of silence for Bob Kudre. Anything that you want to say about Bob? I know you
Well,
worked with him.
that's where I was at. I was at the funeral. The family asked me to speak at the funeral. Bob was, for those that didn't know him, he was just, he was an asset to the county. The Kudres in general have been an asset to the county. I was fortunate enough to have Ken as a teacher and, Bob as a mentor and a friend and a boss for a number of years. Great family. Bob is a great person. And, once he opted out of law enforcement, you know, he taught the Southmont law enforcement class for a number of years, and got out of that a couple years ago. But I could stand up here the rest of the night and you know, and say good things about Bob, you know, and unfortunately, you know, I mean, like I shared at the funeral, most of the stories, you know, probably aren't appropriate for this type of setting. He was a great friend, and I mean, we had a lot of great memories. But, you know, he served the county well. Thank you.
He's a good guy. Any other questions for Ryan?
You
Thanks,
guys have
Ryan.
made this entirely too easy.
Well, just,
Thank God it's working.
yeah, especially now.
It's, yep. Yeah, that was a couple months ago. Yep. So yep, it's working flawlessly.
All right, that's all we need.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, any public comment or any comments on what we've gone through tonight?